Good to have you with us, and with me, you missed the introduction, but you may remember Eric Williams from Pacifica Radio, who covered you when you were chancellor here in New York City, and he's kind of sitting in as my co-host today. One of the things that I find very disturbing in reading your book, Only Connect, the Way to Save Our Schools, is how far behind the United States lags when compared to other countries. American fourth graders score 12th in the world in math skills after countries like Latvia and Hungary. Our eighth graders are 15th, below Malaysia and the Slavic Republic, and by the time they're 15 years old, the kids have slipped off the map to 24th place internationally. How the devil do we expect our kids to be able to compete in a global market when they are lagging so far behind?
Well, I don't think necessarily we have been particularly focused in any sort of analytical way on whether or not they can compete globally. I think the world has changed. Things have, through technology and a whole host of other ways, things have become far more knowledge-based. Jobs have become driven by a whole set of other factors. And the question of the relevance of schooling and the curriculum of schools and the experience of schooling has gone pretty much unanswered in this country. We have assumed that our basic structure, our time, our day, our year, the way by which we teach, the organization of schools, we've just assumed that all those things automatically will be enough of an added value to children's lives that they'll be able to kind of make it, as our parents used to say. And I just don't see that as being true any longer. So it caused me to write a book to sort of answer the question of, well, if America was truly going to leave no child behind, then what would we have to do differently than we're doing right now?
And what do we have to do then, in general, to make the kids be competitive after they graduate?
I think in the first instance that we have to really sort of look at this as a problem that we as a society need to address. It isn't just so much just what do schools need to do. It's really much more a function of what do we have to do at multiple levels. What do parents have to do, the business community, the politicians, school people themselves, etc. And the notion of connecting is maybe the first thing we ought to do. Maybe there's enough leverage on the table right now, but we simply haven't put it together. We haven't really sort of connected these pieces in ways that would give our kids the kind of lift that they need. We've been talking year in and year out about things like bilingual education or not bilingual education, what my state does versus what your state does, how my kids are doing in my city versus how your kids are doing in your city. And I don't think that conversation necessarily gets us to a national stance on public education. I think it gets us to a local stance of public education, and I don't think that serves us in terms of our global competitiveness.
Was my description accurate? It's really, maybe I was projecting my own feelings about this, Dr. Rudy Crew, when I said that you are suggesting that rather than learning to learn, they're learning how to pass the test so that the school and the school district looks like it actually is competitive.
No, you weren't exaggerating at all. We have a system whereby, for the most part, our instruction is aimed at children being able to function on test day. And I'm simply saying it's a bigger requirement than that. And the student's requirement is to function throughout their lives. That's the purpose of schooling. And at a time when we need the ability to have young people who can sort of create a world, live in a world, respond to a world, be responsible in a world that is so incredibly more culturally and economically complex. We're worried about, do you have enough credits and did you pass the test? And I just think those are significant questions, but they're not sufficient questions. There are other questions that really have to be asked. of children in terms of whether or not they're ready for the world of work. Do they know anything about balancing a checkbook? Do they know anything about being able to go to work or dress for the kind of environment in which they may find themselves? Do they have any sense of their credit or how to use credit? So the fact that they have taken and passed the test, while important on one level, is just not necessarily the right barometer for whether or not they can compete globally.
Rudy Crew, and jump in here anytime, Eric, that you feel like it. Dr. Crew, is it really the responsibility of educators to teach kids some of these things that you mentioned? For example, you talk in the book about that it's important that young people and even not so young people learn that when you walk up to somebody who's in a position of responsibility, somebody that you ought to be respecting, perhaps somebody that you might be going to for a job, that you look the person in the eye, that you shake their hand, that you say yes sir and no sir, that you tuck your shirt in and not have your pants hang down so that your boxer shorts are showing, which to me seems like basic issues that apparently that my mother and father and your father, from what you wrote in the book, taught you. But I guess the parents are failing the kids in too many instances now. Now does it fall upon the educators to teach these kinds of basic, common decency issues to the children?
Well, I think it falls upon all of us. I don't think it's necessarily just educators, but I think that there are some aspects of what you just described, Gary, that I think are a function of a social institution like a school. I think it's important that kids know that there's a sense of order to their day and to their presentation of themselves, that there are some expectations that they have to meet. Whether it's to be punctual, or whether it's to complete work as assigned, or to be mannerable and respectful. Of course, those things start at home. But
it's really interesting
in a home and school and work and community connectedness, that all of those things have to be embellished. And what I'm saying is the absence of them in our students and in our children means in many ways we're all slipping on requiring or demanding those things from our young people.
My guest is Dr. Rudy Crew. He is the superintendent of the Miami-Dade County School District, former chancellor here in New York City, where this show is emanating. He is the author of a new book